For the first time in program history, North Central College is set to kick off play in the national semifinals after a 41-17 win in frigid temperatures at Bethel University in Minnesota. But it doesn't get any easier. Next on the docket, a date with the defending champs, Mount Union. They've only been to the Stagg Bowl the last 8 years. It's quite a task, but the Cards are up to it. We'll tell you why next on the Red Zone. Welcome inside the Red Zone. I'm Justin Zipser. North Central head coach John Thorne joins us to open the show, and congratulations in order. Another victory. You're now past the quarterfinals. You're into the national semifinals for the first time. I guess as a coach, watching your team in that game against Bethel, another victory, 41-17. How proud of your squad are you, considering the elements, the competition, everything combined into one thing there?
Very proud of them. I'm very happy for them. They played extremely hard. And they just didn't let anything worry them. You know, some of our coaches were getting all panicky about all sorts of things, you know, and the players just, hey, we're ready, you know. Let's get some shoes on. Let's find out what works, and then let's go out there and play. But after talking to the players after the game, it was really brutal on their bodies. The ground was just as hard as concrete. I mean, so everything was fine until you finally had to hit the ground, and then that was very, very hard on them. And that's what I've grown to really love about this team, is they have so much courage, so much intestinal fortitude. They just, nothing phases them. They're going to go out there and they're going to finish, you know, their job. And so it was a great weekend. We had lots of fun together, and they certainly played a very nice game.
And it was a game against Bethel. I know last week when we talked about Bethel as sort of a preview piece, we mentioned that Eric Peterson was injured in that week preceding their game, heading into this week, and we thought he would probably play, considering he was questionable. We thought he was going to play, and then we saw Tom O'Keefe instead. Well, yeah, and he did warm up, and so I was watching him a little bit, and he's a great player. They have a wonderful team, really good team. They're very, very, very physical. They were big guys. They're well coached. Bethel's a really good program, but when he was warming up, you know, you could see Tom, and the ball just zipped out of his hands. And then their starter, he's throwing it, but the ball isn't coming out. So you could tell it was still very tender, and he was having a hard time with it. So I thought for sure they would at least start the game with him and just see how it went, you know. But evidently he must have been in a lot of pain and so forth. So I'm sure they did the right thing for him, and unfortunate for their team. I mean, it would have been maybe a better game. Who knows? You know, I thought their backup quarterback really did some very good things for him under those circumstances. I mean, who plays in that kind of weather? You know, and then to be the backup on top of all of that, and it was a tough situation for them, and we were glad that we got out of there with a win. Well, certainly the weather was an issue, as we talked about. We talked to a couple of other players during the practice week to get their thoughts on how the weather affected the game. This week's What's the Word?
It was fun looking back at it now, but it was pretty bad playing. I mean, the temperature wasn't too bad. Just the field conditions were, you know, pretty tough. I ended up getting some stitches, and you know, it was just a hard surface to play on.
Well, it wasn't really a football field. It was more of a parking lot. I mean, it was bad. We really couldn't dig our cleats in at all, and I wore tennis shoes the whole game, which helped. But I mean, there were some patches of ice there that you really couldn't plant on. The cold was bad, but really the playing surface was the hardest part. But I think we adapted well. It really didn't limit too much of what we did. You know, both teams played on it, so it was an even surface, and I think we did a really good job of adjusting to it, not letting it mess with our minds.
A lot of ice. I mean, I'd rather play on the parking lot, to be honest, with a little bit of snow, but, you know, it is what it is, and we came out with a W, and that's all that matters.
So let's talk a little bit about Ryan Kent. He had a career high in carries, 28 compared to the 27, so not a huge increase over the Platteville game, but another game with 4 touchdowns. I think watching the game at home, it was certainly a case where the weather is cold. You want to get a ground focus and make sure you can definitely get going that way. What have you seen out of Ryan over the last couple of weeks to help you do that?
Well, it's a good thing we had a hypnotist on our sideline, because we talked to him beforehand. He put him under this little trance and told him the ground is not hard. And it really worked well, you know, because 28 carries, that's an awful lot of times to ask the same guy to, hey, we want you to run forward, and then let those guys come pile on top of you and hit the ground really hard. Is that okay? You know, so courage, courage, courage. He did a marvelous job. And lineman up front opened the right kind of holes at the right time, and he's had great vision and saw where he needed to go, because nothing was easy. You couldn't, our linemen couldn't hit him and just move him because the footing was so bad. So he's getting the ball, and our line of scrimmage hasn't moved too much. It's going to open it eventually, but where it's going to open was very difficult to figure out that day. And so when Ryan started feeling it, we just felt safer giving the ball to the same, you know, running back a lot of times. And pretty courageous, awesome game.
Man, you mentioned his body was beat up a little bit. I mean, really every player on the team who got out there to play in this game on that concrete-like surface had some cuts, had some bruises after that game. What kind of practice week have you initiated here to kind of help him fight through the injuries a little bit?
We were going to practice on the parking lot, but we realized, hey, wait a minute, they have turf. They have turf. It's not going to be as hard. So we've tried to give their bodies back to them a little bit, you know, on Monday and Tuesday. And now today, we probably do need to get outside. We need to see the spacing a little bit better on, especially, you know, with 7-on-7 for both offense and defense. But it's going to be pretty darn cold out there, and so we'll see how long we will stay out there. But the guys they're recovering a little bit more every day, you know, and so we're hoping that Thursday they're going to feel even better, Friday even better than that, and then go out and be ready to play some Cardinal football on Saturday.
Well, we'll be cold on Saturday, but I'm certainly hoping that the players will be ready. They've been used to this kind of cold already. So we're just getting started with Coach Thorne. We continue after the break. Talk some Mountain Union next on the Red Zone.
Yes, ready. Let's go get it.
Oh, come on, Randy. Animal shelter, here I come. And no, I'm not crazy or emotionally damaged. That's a stereotype. I just belong to a total loser. I'm a good dog. So if you want a pet, adopt. And if you see Randy, tell him he dropped his wallet.
Thanks for joining us back inside another edition of the Red Zone. We're still with Coach Thorne. So last week you called Bethel probably your strongest opponent yet. And here we have defending champions Mountain Union and a chance to go to the Stagg Bowl. I assume that, you know, it ratchets up each week, and now this is your strongest opponent.
It does, you know, and Bethel, if their quarterback would have played, you know, then that prediction probably would have been pretty accurate. But everybody is going to play for Mount Union as far as we know, and they certainly are an extremely good team, and they're good on all three phases, you know, offense, defense, and special teams. They use a lot of starters on special teams, which a lot of teams don't do. So we're still trying to solve the jigsaw puzzle, you know, get all the pieces put together so that we can ask our players to do things that they can physically do against their team and not be asked, you know, there's a lot of great game plans out there, but if your players can't execute the part of the game plan that you need, then it's not so good. So we're working really hard to try and make everything as easy for our players as possible in terms of you've got a chance on this play to execute and make a play, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's a fun process, long hours, and we're getting tired, but it's just too much fun. It's too exciting, so we want to keep going with the guys, and they're doing the same thing. They're working really hard. And
the longest hours definitely come at the end of the season. Let's talk. I don't want to go too much into the X's and O's specifically because I know you want to keep some things secret for Saturday, obviously. But, I mean, let's just talk about how good of a team this is over the long stretch. Mount Union, 8 straight appearances in the Stagg Bowl. I mean, they've been to 19 straight national semifinals, and you're here for your first time. And another interesting stat, and I think I want to bring this back to the Bethel game where you forced 5 turnovers on Bethel. And back over to Mount Union, since 1996, they're 136-0 when they win that turnover battle. Yeah. How important is that for this game on Saturday?
Well, that's the whole secret of the game, especially against good teams, you know, is you've got to take care of the football, and we need to work really hard at not giving up 1-play drives, 2-play drives, you know, for scores, or a quick special team score, you know, a blocked punt or a return or something like that. So those are the key things, I think, the turnovers, and then not giving up those big plays. So we are really working hard on those things with our guys. I have all the faith in the world that our guys are going to really execute the best that they have for the whole season in this game. They know what it means, and they know what it's going to take, and they can't wait to, you know, give it our absolute best shot.
The best shot, I assume, will be enough, hopefully. If North Central wants to continue its season, the team will probably need another great output from its receiving core. And as we take a deeper look in this week's Cardinal Corner, wideouts Chad O'Kane and Peter Sorenson have developed to the nation's top receiving duo.
Over the last 3 months, the sight of Chad O'Kane and Peter Sorenson catching a touchdown pass from Spencer Stanek has become commonplace. 14 for Sorenson, 13 for O'Kane. Together, that makes for 27, placing them second in the entire nation as a duo, and tops for the nation's remaining 4 teams.
Chad and I are 2 pretty good players. I think we're capable of doing that stuff. I didn't know that until Chad told me just a few seconds ago, so that's pretty cool, you know. It means we're doing something right.
The only other duo to find the end zone more often in 2013 is University of Dubuque's Tyler Rutenbeck and Chris Bagley with 30 touchdowns. But considering Rutenbeck has 22 of those, and Sorenson and O'Kane have more yards than the Iowa duo, you can argue that the 2 from North Central are more balanced and impressive.
I only had 2 touchdowns all last season, so I mean that's pretty cool. But you know, Peter's having an unbelievable season, and I expect nothing less from him.
Both wideouts are chasing a mark that's been atop the NCC record book since the end of the 2005 season. Tyke Spencer's 15 receiving TDs.
It's our game plan with our coaches. We know with the defenses that teams we've been playing, our coach put up an awesome game plan to be able to attack their coverages.
That game plan in recent weeks has been heavily focused on O'Kane. In the most important games of the season, the senior has shined with 10 touchdowns in the team's last 5 games. To match the offensive output of a Mountain Union team that puts up 50 points a game, the Cardinals will need everything the duo has.
So we know the numbers. We know that they're an excellent team. They have the pedigree year after year after year. But if you look at the stats for the teams, both yours and Mountain Union's team, you're pretty similar. I mean, you both have high octane offenses, as we just saw in that Cardinal Corner, and you both have very solid defenses. I guess the difference is last week Mountain Union gave up 59 points to Wesley. They won that game 62-59. But I mean, what have you seen out of their defense that maybe you want to poke at a little bit?
Well, that's a lot of points to give up in one game, and that was a lot of yards. And I'm sure they're not happy with that, and they're probably very aggressive with their defense this whole week, where we have a chance to be a lot calmer with our players and make it a fun week for them. Defensively, we really know that their quarterback is a very fine athlete. He's going to make some plays, and you just got to play the next play. And forget what happened. Don't get involved with all the, pushing and shoving and trash talking and the things that happen sometimes in really big games, and just keep focusing on playing football.
Yeah, this is the biggest game in the program's history. Do you change your coaching at all this year to hype them up? Obviously, they're going to be hyped up anyway when it comes to Saturday. Any difference in the way you're coaching the team this week?
No. It's not usually a very good idea to all of a sudden try something totally different. These guys know they keep a straight face. They don't let things get into their heads. They don't let things phase them and get all panicky and worried about things and so forth. They know what they can do. They know what our opponent can do. And now let's get this game started so that we can find out how well we can match up with them. So you don't want to try some whole new motivational technique that you've never tried before and then all of a sudden find out, hey, wait a minute, that might not be the one that works for this group. So we'll do things like we've been doing them, and just we're excited for the game to get here. It's been a very fun week so far.
Well, they're well prepared. That's a testament to you, the rest of the coaching staff. We wish you the best of luck. It's going to be a fantastic game. We can't wait to watch it.
All right, good.
We'll see Coach again next week, but again, don't go anywhere. There's more Red Zone right after the break.
Hi, my name's CJ. A few years ago, my father became seriously ill. I did what I could do before he passed, but it took its toll. I lost my job, my house. I'm getting back on my feet, but I don't know when there'll be food on the table. How'd I do, CJ?
We could be twins.
Well, cousins, maybe.
Play a role in ending hunger. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food bank.
We're back inside the Red Zone. Defensive back Connor Douglas and junior wideout Peter Sorenson on set with us. Guys, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having us.
Connor, it's your first time on the show this week. We've already had Peter. We'll talk to you later, man. But Connor, we'll have you on the show first this week, and we'll talk to you first. I mean, we'll start with Bethel. Obviously, it was a big game. We talked about how cold it was, but really you guys, as far as stats, watching you guys play the game, it didn't seem like it affected you too much, and you had a great game, a forced fumble, really helping change the tide of that game. Again, a lot of turnovers for Bethel. Was that sort of the defining factor, you think, for that game?
Yeah, we realized with the temperature that the ball's going to be hard, so we really had to capitalize on ball security and forcing fumbles, and we were able to get a few picks. We weren't sure how much they were going to throw it with it being so cold, but we were able to capitalize on them putting the ball in the air.
And it seemed like on Bethel's first offensive possession, running the ball pretty heavily, and they seemed to have a little bit of success on that first drive. What did you guys learn from that first drive that really helped you shut them down from there on out?
We just had to make a few adjustments, not get too worried that they were able to drive down on us, because it is the quarterfinals. There's only 8 teams at that point, so every team's going to be good. There's going to be some success. You just got to roll with the punches.
And Peter, back over to you. We haven't had you on the show since like after the first game of the season. So looking back on where you were and the team was back then after that first game to where you are today, did you think that you would be here on the middle of December?
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal every year. We try to get to Salem, and we're so close. I knew even back then at the beginning of the year we had a really good team, and just throughout the season we've done a really good job of progressing, getting better each and every week, and it's accumulated to where we're at now. We've played some of our best games in the playoffs, and now we've got a pretty tough task, but we're up to the challenge.
Now, speaking of that task, it's Mountain Union. We talked about with Coach how good they are and how successful they have been over the last decade plus. They do have a first-year coach. It's the son of the former coach, so he has some continuity there, and he's a 98 graduate of Mountain Union, and of course was a defensive coordinator for the team as well. So not a lot of change over there. They're still the same old Mountain Union team. You've never played them before. This is the first ever meeting. What do you look to expect out of Mountain Union for this week?
Well, anyone who knows D3 football knows Mountain Union. They're kind of the class of D3, but we expect a good team. They've got an impressive pedigree, but we only have to focus about the team that's going to be on the field on Saturday. And that team's pretty good. They're really good, and you know, it presents some problems, but we think there are some places we can exploit, some weaknesses that we can attack, and we're a pretty confident group. You know, they've got a lot of confidence, and rightfully so. So do we. You know, we're both 13-0, and we're both one of the 4 teams remaining in the year, and you know, we're a pretty confident group.
And looking at their offense, Connor, it's a pretty great offense. They scored nearly 50 points a game. Looking at film and what you see and what you know out of them previously, what do you see out of this offense? They're still pretty balanced, even with that 50 points per game average number.
Yeah, they have a lot of good players. But like Pete was saying, like when it comes down to a Final Four, every team's going to be good. And really, you just have to play to your strengths because everybody has strengths and there's very few weaknesses when you get this far. You just got to play your game and just keep playing the football that got you here and to move on. And hopefully we'll be able to get some turnovers and be able to stop their high-powered offense.
Well, certainly that was your team's calling card against Bethel. And really, when you look at this team's record, 76, they have a 76 winning streak at home, which is pretty ridiculous. Obviously, this game is going to be in Alliance, Ohio. What kind of atmosphere are you expecting for this match?
Well, we're expecting a good atmosphere. We know they've got a lot of fan support, and we just expect maybe a hostile crowd. But we can't focus on that. We can just focus on what we can control.
And what was the atmosphere like on Bethel? I mean, you guys it was your first road game in quite a while, but obviously a hostile crowd. It was a good team, a good program, well coached, as Coach always says about Bethel. What did you see out of that crowd on Saturday?
Honestly, I thought it was too cold to worry about the crowd. I think everyone was trying to conserve their energy in the crowd. It wasn't anything crazy. It was a good show up on both sides. I thought it was a good crowd, but like Pete said, Mount Union, in the semifinals, it's going to be a big crowd, but that's what we're ready for. We're excited to play. So, yeah.
And I guess the one good thing about the cold was that it really kind of closed you off just focusing on the game. It really took you out of that other stuff. Really, you can only focus on the game and staying warm, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and the turf, too. Or I can't even really call it turf, more ice and concrete. But yeah, you just focus on the game, and when you get to this point, that's what you have to do. Just focus on the little things and kind of block everything out and get that tunnel vision.
All right on. Well, guys, you both have had fantastic seasons, and as a team, you guys are looking to go into rarefied air. I mean, first time you're in the national semis, and a win would take you to the Stagg Bowl, but of course, Mount Union standing in your way. We wish you the best of luck. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having us.
Don't go anywhere. We still have more Red Zone. Clark Tusher after the break.
Today is Saturday. 60 minutes of physical activity a day and eating well can help get your child healthy. Get ideas. Get involved. Get going at letsmove.gov. That's letsmove.gov.
Welcome back to the Red Zone. North Central Sports Information Director Clark Tusher with us to talk the best of the rest in Cardinal athletics. Clark, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Let's talk a little bit more about women's basketball. We touched on them last week, and coming off another overtime, or at least near overtime game. They won with 11 seconds left, and Marissa Cladis 3 over St. Mary's of Indiana. Put that game away, and they finished the game on a 9-2 run. It seems like in their 6 games so far, they're really getting into a lot of close games at the end of the match. Why do you think that is?
Well, part of it is just the system that they play. You know, they're going to give up some stuff on the defensive end, but the good thing about it is when you need a quick bucket, you don't have to call anything special. You need to put on your press at the end of the game. You've already been doing it for 35 or 38 minutes. So, you know, going into a crunch situation in the final minute, it really doesn't change much of the game plan at all, and I think they've benefited from that a couple of times here. Now,
switching over to wrestling, a team we haven't talked about yet this season. They just came off the Wisconsin Open. That's a meet that really involves all divisions of the NCAA, so they weren't expected to do huge things in that meet, but they did have a couple of nice finishes. Dylan Mahler in the heavyweight position finishing second. What's the outlook on that team this year?
Oh, that's a really kind of a telltale meet early in the season because it's so challenging with wrestlers from all different divisions, a lot of scholarship programs there. You know, the Wisconsin schools in particular are very strong in the wrestling programs. So it was good to see several guys step up and win some matches in their respective divisions. Dylan at the heavyweight division, for a couple of years, he kind of took some lumps because he was undersized. It's tough for guys to step up into college wrestling and wrestle at heavyweight because of the gap between the heavyweight division and the next highest weight is much larger than it is at the high school level. So he had to take a couple of years and physically mature before he was able to really compete at that level. He's got 6 of his 12 wins are by pin this year, so he's certainly stepped his strength and stamina up to the point where he's able to compete with the bigger, stronger individuals. Josh Tardy was another guy. He's a transfer from Harper Community College, placed highly as well. Really helpful to have a guy who's a little older like that with such a young team to help from a leadership standpoint as well.
They are a young team, and we saw Tardy finish at 157 in second as well, like you said, a high finish for him. Nathan Fitzenreiter obviously has gone from last season at 141. We do have some new young wrestlers, though, to see some new blood on this team. Leighton Binion is one of them, and he right now 8th in the nation at his weight class at 133. What can you tell us about him?
Well, Leighton actually went to North Central last year, but he missed the season due to an injury. So he's been a part of the program, and he knows what it's about. He's been he started this season in very good shape at 133. It's obviously he's filling a big hole where Nathan was for so many years. But having that experience and been around kind of the atmosphere of the program in college wrestling for a year, even though he wasn't competing, has certainly helped him as he started this season. And Nick Santos, his first tournament this past weekend at 125. That's a tough weight to get down to, and I'm sure as an older guy, he's as he's physically matured, it can be a little more difficult to stay at that weight. So was able to get back down there and do pretty well in his first tournament against some pretty tough opposition.
Now flipping back to football, you obviously the SID. It's a big week for the football team. It's a big week for the college, and from the academic side and the administration side, it's a big week. What kind of stuff do you do to set up for such a big week on your side?
Well, throughout the playoffs in general, you're up against teams that you're not very familiar with. So there's a lot more, from an information standpoint that you have to get across as far as what your team's been doing throughout the year, so that these different media outlets can cover the game effectively. In particular, this week you have a game with ESPN. Anytime you bring ESPN into the conversation, it takes on a whole different focus in terms of all the things that they do, as the worldwide leader in sports, to cover an event like that, and all the information and photos and video and art and all those other things that you have, and on all the meetings and interviews that go on during the week in preparation for something like that. So to see the back end of a production like that has been one of those things. It's been demanding, but it's been a lot of fun to be a part of.
Well, it's a busy week for you. You just got off a conference call with some of those ESPN guys, and we appreciate you taking the time to step in with us.
Not a problem at all.
You heard it once before, but one last reminder, the Cardinals football team is on the road again in the biggest game in program history for the defending national champions, Mountain Union. The winner goes on to the Stagg Bowl. Game kicks off in Ohio at 11 a.m. Central Time. Stay up to date with live stats on NorthCentralCardinals.com, and as Clark mentioned, check out live video on ESPN3.com. I'm Justin Zipser. We'll see you next week on the Red Zone.